All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm Steve Stedman, and welcome to this week's live stream. Today, we're going to be talking about a new feature that I created a couple weeks ago called our Backup, Restore, and Business Continuity Self-Assessment. What this is a report. It's a survey that you can fill out, put in all the information about your backup status, and then when you're done filling it out, submit it, and you will get an email report with details on risks, things you can do to help mitigate those risks, and what you can do to be in a better position going forward. Some notes: if you've attended one of our previous sessions last week or the week before, those sessions are now all available on YouTube. You can just click through to my channel and see them there, and download, or not download, but watch them. If you missed last week's session, check it out. So, thanks for attending. This is something we're going to try and do on a weekly basis, and hopefully everyone here will learn something new. And at a minimum, at the end, you will get the free output clause class. We'll tell you how you're going to get that at the end of the session, and that's a class that talks about one of those SQL Server features that I think is pretty unknown to a lot of people, and it's super handy. It's one of those that once you learn how to use the SQL Server output clause, you're going to write queries and people are going to look at it and go, wow, what does that do? And that's a cool feeling when you do something like that. So why have I created this SQL Server self-assessment? Well, first off, I've got too many calls from people who did not consider these tough questions until disaster strikes. Basically, they called me after they got hit with a system failure or ransomware or other things that they didn't think about their backups, or they thought that they had backups, or they thought that someone else was taking care of their backups. And then I helped them, and I didn't really help, but I had to explain to them that because you don't have any backups, you don't have any way to recover from this specific scenario. Another reason is that there's too much ransomware out there. These ransomware people, they make me really angry, and anything I can do to help prevent another company from having to pay the ransomware fee, I want to do whatever I can to help prevent that. So really, all of this is around prevention and doing things ahead of time so that when you get to the point that disaster strikes, that you're in a position where you're able to recover from it, and not wishing that you had looked at backups at that point in time. Wishing that you had taken care of them before disaster hit. Okay, so let's jump into the demo. The way this works, let's see here. Switch over to the right screen here. This is the T-SQL output clause class. At the end of the session, I'll give you information on how you can get that for free. But for now, what you'll want to do, if you want to try out the free backup recovery and business continuity survey, you just go to stedmansolutions.com. You mouse over the home tab up front, and on the drop-down menu it says business continuity survey, and you just click on that. Once you click on that, it's going to take you into a form with a series of questions, and all of these questions are designed to help assess what your risks are, to basically get to the end of it and point out to whoever's doing this what the things are that they could be really stuck on if you don't deal with it before you get hit with a disaster. What the things are that you could fix or adjust in order to help make that better in the event that you are hit with a disaster. So first off, just a simple questions about how many SQL servers you're responsible for. And I'm going to answer this as me. And as we go through this, we're going to see how well I do based off of my answers. And with this, we're also going to see, I'll show you the results of a sample I went through and answered the wrong answers, meaning the answers that mean that you need some serious help there. And I guess I should say there's not really any right or wrong answer. It's just that what's going to properly protect you. And the whole point of taking the survey is not to get this right or wrong, but to understand where those weak places are. Okay, so the next question is, when is the last time you or a team member practiced restoring a database from a backup? And I'm going to say in the last week, because I did that just the other day. Also, I should note that while we're doing this, feel free to do it yourself. Go to stedmansolutions.com and click on the Home Business Continuity Survey, and you can be answering it with your answers as we go through as well. What is the duration of your backup history retention? How long do you keep your backup files? Okay, so why is this important? Well, let's say somebody deletes something from a table and you don't realize it for 24 or 48 hours. Then you realize, oh my gosh, we're missing all the orders from 2 years ago. Or let's say you get hit with corruption and you only have 24 hours worth of backups, but the corruption hit last week and you don't have any way to recover to before that. Having a longer duration in your backup history gives you more options in the event that something does happen. In the event that something horrible does happen, it gives you options of how you can recover down the road. So I'm going to say, what is your backup retention? I have more than a month on my servers that I'm working on. Are your backups stored on the same drive, server, or network location as your databases? So this is one of those that it's important to get your backup files off of the SQL Server so that in the event that your SQL Server fails, you still have backups that you can use. I mean, imagine if you had, let's say it's your D drive, and you had all your database files in your D drive and all your backups in your D drive, and that one hard drive failed. Well, everything's gone at that point. So we want to make sure that backups are getting moved off of the server to a network location or hopefully somewhere off-site or in the cloud. And there's this concept of what's called immutable storage. And immutable storage means that once it's written there, it can't be changed for a specific amount of time. And I have that on some of my backups where once it's written to immutable storage, it can't be changed for 6 months or 9 months. So I'll check that one, and we'll say that they're copied off-site because they are. And then I'll hit next. And then keep in mind at the end, I'll open this up for any questions at that point. But for now, we're just going through all the questions here and why they're applicable, and then you'll get to see the report when it's all done. Okay, so the next question, how frequently do you perform off-site or cloud-based backups? Well, let's say you're doing it monthly and you're halfway through the month and you get hit with ransomware. Are you okay losing 2 or 3 weeks worth of data if you have to go to those off-site backups? If your answer is yes, that's okay, then great. Monthly might be good enough, but usually daily or weekly is good enough depending on the specific environment. I have mine daily. Have you tested your ability to restore from the off-site or cloud-based backups? Okay, so the reason this is a risk factor is that a lot of people might be moving something to the cloud and not actually copying the right files or not knowing if things are getting there successfully. And being able to occasionally grab an off-site or cloud-based backup is a good thing to do. Now, probably don't have to do that daily or weekly, but doing it occasionally so you know how to do it and you know that the backup does work is an important thing to do. There was this thought experiment a long time ago called, by I think it was a physicist named Schrodinger, about Schrodinger's cat. And he theorized, based off of quantum physics and parallel timelines and all that kind of stuff, that if you put a cat in a box with some poison that's going to go at an unusual time, and I'm not encouraging anyone to do this, but that in quantum superposition or something like that, that the cat was both alive and dead until you open the box to prove whether it was alive or dead. Now, you can get into whatever amount of quantum physics you want to talk about on that, but the point is, I kind of think of it as Schrodinger's backups, meaning your backups are assumed to be, you might assume they're good, but you don't know for sure they're good until you actually try them. And once you've tried restoring a backup and tried actually using it, that's the only time you know for sure that your backups are solid. The next question, do you utilize immutable backups? Backups that cannot be overwritten for a specific duration? And that's an important thing to do, specifically with ransomware, because a lot of the time the ransomware will hit your SQL Server, go figure out where all your backups are, go and encrypt or destroy those backups first before it encrypts or destroys your SQL Server. So having an immutable backup or a backup that can't be overwritten is super important for that. Then the next question is, in the event of a ransomware attack, do you have an alternate location where backups can be restored and utilized? The point there is that if your local servers have been, or your primary servers have been compromised with ransomware, are you really going to want to restore your last known good backup onto those possibly compromised servers? I think the answer there, I would not want to do that, and that's why I would want to have a new server or a quick way to spin up a new server that I can work with. A great way to do this would be like with an Azure virtual machine. You could spin up one real quick, do your restores there, and be using that. Or even AWS, similar kind of thing. But yes, I have a way to do that, so I'm going to say yes, we're good there. So then the next question is, what type of backups are implemented on my SQL Server? Now this is important because depending on who you talk to, there are a lot of different opinions on what kind of backup is good enough. And when I say good enough to me means good enough to get data back to meet the recovery time and recovery point objectives and to not lose anything. Now, some people think that a virtual machine full backup or snapshot might be good enough. And in some cases, depending on the business case and what your recovery point is that you want to get back, yes, that might be a great solution. Physical server backup might be a great solution. However, what can happen, and I've seen this on multiple times, is somebody brings back a virtual machine full backup or a physical server full backup, and the database, the backup did not get a consistent copy of that SQL Server database. So then after bringing back that whole machine restore, the database, the server was great, but the database itself wasn't functional, and we had to apply SQL Server backup. So one of the best things to do here is to do regular virtual machine full backup or snapshot, and I like to do that maybe once a day or once a week, and then do SQL Server database backups, and to do these frequently. And this is what I have in my environment I'm working on right now, at least my internal environment. So I'm going to go with that as my answer as we get into the assessment here. But be sure to answer it with the truthfully. And if you don't know, it's okay to say you don't know, because that's just going to point out that you need to go figure that out. And then you can always go figure it out later and then take the assessment again and see how you rank after figuring some things out. So then what type of SQL Server backups do you perform? Select any that apply. So I do full regularly, I do differential at least daily, and I do logs quite frequently, about every 5 minutes in most environments, sometimes 15. And so I'm going to select the three of those. And if you don't know, or you're doing something completely different, that's fine. Just mark something else or unknown, but mark it accurately. And then are you aware of your recovery time objectives and your recovery point objectives? Now, recovery time refers to how long from when you're told that there's an outage will it take until you're able to get that system restored. The recovery point is at the time you're told that there's an outage, how much data was lost up until that point. If you're doing a daily virtual machine backup, that might be as much as almost 24 hours as your recovery point. But if you're doing SQL Server log backups every 5 minutes, it might mean that you can get it back to the last 5 minutes or even back to the last 1 minute, depending on when things occurred. So I'm going to say yes, I'm familiar with that. And does my current backup and recovery or business continuity solution meet these recovery time and recovery point objectives? And yes, I would look pretty bad if I'm doing the survey. I created the survey and I don't even meet it myself. So yes, I do meet it, but tell the truth on all these so you can get an honest report out of it. And in the event of a restoration requirement, do you have predefined scripts ready to use, or would you consult an external resource? Meaning, you've got to restore from an outage. What's the first thing you're going to do? Go grab your standard restore script, or are you going to go to Google and type in, how do I restore from backup, or are you going to call someone to help you? Hopefully you have your restore scripts already created and ready to go. We have a process where we can create those on every backup. We create a restore script that will restore that backup. So I'm going to say yes. Do you have established processes or procedure for regular training on emergency restoration practices? Okay, because we're telling the truth on this, no, I don't have a specific process for that. However, I do, we have enough clients, I do emergency restoration often enough that I'm comfortable with it and the team is comfortable with it. But no, we don't have that properly documented. How do you ensure the integrity of your SQL Server backups? The way I do it is I will do an occasional restoration test. Well, I will go and find a backup that was done sometime in the last few days. I'll attempt to restore it, hopefully with a diff and a log backup to get it back to a point in time and confirm that it's good. Do you have any documentation on disaster recovery plan that specifically covers SQL Server outages, including step-by-step recovery procedure? Yes, we do have that. If you don't have that, keep in mind that at the point that you have to do an emergency recovery, consider that there's someone, a boss or a client or someone that's above you that's going to be asking you every 5 minutes, is it done yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? How long is it going to take? What's the next step? And if you have a document so they can look and you can say, I'm currently on step 7 of this document, there's 4 more steps we have to go through until it's done, that will give them a much more solid feeling of where things are at on your restore. That's an important thing to have. It also helps them get out of your hair a little bit so that you have time to focus on doing the restore rather than focus on how to talk to your manager or client at that point. In the case of a SQL Server failure, do you have a designated secondary site or cloud environment for quick resumption of operations? Yes, that's important. It may not have to be as high speed or high end as your primary system, but it should be able to handle the load of all of your work so that if you are hit with ransomware or a major system outage or something like that, that you've got a place to restore to. Okay, we're going to get to the end here real soon, but there's a few more questions we have to get through, and all these are important in assessing your overall business continuity. So, are your SQL Server backup and recovery processes audited, and if so, how frequently? Meaning, are you going to check on these to make sure they're working, to make sure that the backups are being run, and when you're told they're being run? And for me, I'm going to say that these are audited daily because I have scripts that will alert me if my backups are not run when I expect them to be run. I have different scripts from the actual backup scripts that check that. So you can't have the script that's doing the backup also doing the check to alert you if it doesn't happen, because if something goes wrong with that primary script, well, you may not get notification of anything. Does your organization employ any form of monitoring or alerting system for SQL servers that can notify you of potential backup failures or performance issues? I'm going to say yes. We use our daily monitoring product, which is part of the Stedman Solutions offering, that will send a daily report that if we don't have backups recently, it will throw up some red flags alerting people that we do not have backups going on databases that we need backups on. Okay, next, and this is, I think, one more page after this. This is getting to the short part here. How often do you run DBCC check DB against all of your databases and ensure that they are not corrupt in any way? Well, if your answer is occasionally or never or unknown, that's really the concerning ones. But you want to be able to do this as often as possible, and you want to make sure at least that your backup retention period is longer than your frequency of running CheckDB, so that if you do get a corrupt database, that you do have a way of doing the restore before that corruption occurred. So I do these daily. On some of the bigger systems I work on, we do it every other day, just because there's not enough time in a day to get through the entire check. But daily is where mostly I like to see it. Do you have monitoring in place to notify you when a database check fails? Yes, I have that. That's, again, part of our daily monitoring script that we have. And then at the end, we need to fill in our email address here, steve@stedmansolutions.com. And that's so that the report can get emailed to you. And would you like to talk to one of our team about how we can help? I mean, if you're filling this out and you're just realizing, wow, I need a lot of help here, just say, yeah, we need some help, and we'll reach out to you for a time to meet and talk about what we can do to help you. I think I'm doing okay. Well, yeah, I'll just say yes. We hit finished, and at this point, just says thank you. You'll get email saying with the report. At this point, I will flip over to my email and find that report. And to save time, because it takes a couple minutes for it to kick out, I'm going to go grab one that I did just before this that I answer the questions about the same. And what we're going to get here is you're going to get an assessment that says where you're at. So on our backup and restore, we are ready. I mean, I am prepared. I'm grade of an A on that. Recovery time, yes, we're all good there. Ransomware, we're protected for this because we have all the right ways to recover. So CheckDB is all good. And then here's some ways we can help. Okay, so with that, that's a good grade across the board. But let's see what it would have looked like had I not been doing as good of a job as we have in that environment. So in this email, on the self-assessment, the backup and recovery, are you ready for a restore? Well, on this one, I get an F on this one based off of the answers that I gave when this one was completed. I think I said I don't practice it and I was doing everything wrong. So not knowing your type of backups is dangerous because you can't know that you've got good enough backups. This is, I think I said I was storing backups on the same physical storage as the database. That's a bad idea. And I'm not testing the backup. So here it's a number of things telling me that what we can do. Recommended actions, go determine what kind of backups I have. And then recovery time and recovery point objectives. I'm failing on this one because I don't know what my recovery time point and recovery time, recovery point objectives are, and whether we're meeting them or not. And again, this was me answering as though I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm not doing it the best optimal way here. And then ransomware risk. With this, there's being prepared is really what it's all about, and getting offsite backups to an immutable location is super important. That's something that's available with both Azure and AWS. And being able to have something you can go to if your entire system is completely destroyed by ransomware is so important. And then offsite backups. One of the recommended actions we have here is, again, getting the backups to an immutable location, and then I have a free ransomware class that I offer where you can go to stedman.us/ransomware and sign up for a free ransomware class to learn more about this. And then CheckDB. We need to know if our databases are corrupt or not. And in this example, I was not checking regularly. All right, that wraps up the actual assessment. If you're filling it out on your own and not talking through the details like I did here, you'll probably get through it quite a bit faster than I did. But let's go back to the rest of the presentation here. Do this, take this assessment. Hopefully you learn something from it. If there's something you don't understand or something you need help with, please reach out and I'll do what I can to help. We're happy to help. We do a lot of this. And so what can we do about it? Well, the whole thing is be prepared. Don't try and deal with your backups after your first ransomware attack. It's like they say, don't try and get healthy after your first heart attack. Do it before. Same kind of thing here. Take the self-assessment survey that we just did. Go to stedmansolutions.com. On the menu under Home Business Continuity Survey. Go through, do it, get the report, see where you're at. Oh, excuse me. Shouldn't sneeze on camera. Sorry about that. We'll edit that out later. So we're going to take the self-assessment survey, and then if you take the survey and find out that there's things that you're not doing correctly or that you don't know about, well, figure out what the right thing is to do, get them fixed, and then take the survey again and see how you're doing. You can take it as many times as you want as you change things or learn more over time. And then consider the free ransomware class that I talked about. This is a ransomware course specifically targeting database administrators with the idea of what can you do not to stop ransomware, but in the case that ransomware hits, what can you do to protect your databases and to get your systems back online. So, the special gift that I have for everyone who attended the session today is the SQL Server output clause course. This is a course that I created just over a year ago. It's one of our short series where we have a series of short classes that just cover a very specific small topic. I will send out a link to everyone who attended the session with details with the coupon code in order to get this for free as a thank you for attending. And at this point, I'm going to open it up to any questions. One second, I have to figure out where. I'm going to open it up to any questions. Let's see, do we have any? If you have any questions, please put them in the chat window. I don't see anything currently coming in the chat, but there is about a 1 minute delay from when I ask for questions until it streams to you and until the question actually gets back to me. So I am going to wait here just for a minute in the chat window and see if there are any questions. Oh, here we go. There are questions. Marty has a question around DBCC CheckDB. There's really not a great time to run this check on an extremely busy production system. I have to turn on all the standard alerts for data integrity instead to monitor. Right. So a lot of the alerts that you get around data integrity, you may not, those are not always, they're not always going to tell you if you have a corrupt database. And what I recommend doing, okay, so additional information, he said, also I log ship, and that to me relates to the integrity of the data where the restore happened successfully. So typically with log shipping, the transaction log is being sent, or the transactions associated with the transaction log are being sent to the second or third server. And with that, if there's corruption in a data file, typically the transaction log shipping will not send the corruption along to the other server. And I say typically, there could be cases where it did, but in what I've seen generally, it does not happen. Because the corruption usually encounters when the data file is being written. Now, it is possible that if there was corruption in the log, but that would cause the log shipping to fail, of course. So, yeah, usually log shipping doesn't transfer the corruption to the other site. And in fact, I've used log shipping as a way to fix corruption to get past a point in time where corruption occurred on a primary system. But the question is, you should be running it on the primary server at some point in time. And the reason is, on a busy production system, I always try to ask the question of how busy is that system going to be if it gets hit with corruption that puts it down or knocks it out for a couple of days. And I would rather know about it on a busy system and being able to fix it. And fixing it might mean that you're switching over to the secondary with log shipping and using that and then flipping it back to ship back the other way. But you still need to know at some point that the database is not being corrupt, because next time you reinitialize log shipping, it may end up being corrupt when you go back the other direction. It's really one of those safety checks that you might get away your entire career without ever running CheckDB and without ever having a corrupt database. But then again, it depends on the hardware and the systems and the stability and a lot of things. I've seen a lot of corruption, and I've done a lot of corruption repair over time. And most of the time that we encounter corruption that is more difficult to deal with is the case that someone was not checking frequently. Too many times, I mean, one of our specialties is corruption repair, and we're kind of getting off the topic of the self-assessment, but it's important in that I love doing corruption repair, and it's one of the things that we probably make the most money at as well, which is another reason I love it. But what I hate is when you have to explain to someone that there's nothing left. Your database is corrupt. You don't have good backups. You haven't checked DB in over a year or even over ever. And because of that, we don't know when your corruption was hit or anything along the way. It's just a tough spot to be when you have to tell people that there's nothing that can be done and that all their data is gone. And that's why it's so important to do check DB as often as we can. Now, another thing is, as often as you can, once a day is great, but if you can't do it once a day, what can you do? We have one system that we work on that was it was a poorly designed database, but it was going to take a couple of months to do check DB on it because it was so big and the system was so slow. So what we did is we put in a custom script that did check table, and that check table would run and check whatever tables hadn't been checked or were the least recently checked. So at least every month or so, we're doing check table on every single table in that database and getting to the point that we know that every table is in good shape, even if the entire database hasn't been checked. So it's one of those things that because we've seen so many bad things happen with corruption, and I mean our specialty is corruption repair as well. So I just always want to push whatever we can to keep people from having corrupt databases. I know we probably went way deeper there, Marty, than what you were thinking when you asked it, but it's one of those topics that's near and dear because we do a lot with it. At this point, I'm going to give it another minute and ask if there's any questions. I'd like to encourage everyone to go take the free assessment and get the report and see how your system checks out. And again, with it, I mean, any report, there may be scenarios that it would be great if you could do check DB every day, for instance, but there's real scenarios like Marty's explaining that, yeah, it can't possibly be done, and checking it in chunks may take sense, may make sense there. All right, I think that wraps up today's session. I'm going to give it about 20 more seconds just in case there's any last minute questions coming in. Last week or 2 weeks ago when I did this, as soon as I hit the end, I had another question come in, so that's why I'm giving it a little bit extra time here. We're going to try and do this every week, so please join us again next week or the week after. Look forward to presenting to everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching our video. I'm Steve, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Please click the thumbs up if you liked it, and if you want more information, more videos like this, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so that you can get notified of future videos that we create.